Welcome to our Sunday evening edition of Arirang News. I'm Daniel Che. We begin with a natural disaster in Ecuador. This comes just days after two earthquakes rattled Japan, another country in the notorious Ring of Fire. At least 77 people have been killed, but officials caution the number is preliminary and that more severe damage could be revealed after the sun rises. Lee Ji-won has the details.
The strongest earthquake to hit Ecuador in decades has left at least 77 dead and scores injured, destroying tall buildings and trapping people in the rubble. The magnitude 7.8 quake struck at close to 7 p.m. on Saturday local time, just 27 kilometers west of the northern coastal town of Muisne. The seismic event was recorded at a relatively shallow depth of 19.2 kilometers, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. However, the tremor was still strong enough to be felt in the capital of Quito, 170 kilometers away from the epicenter, where it reportedly shook a building for about 40 seconds. The full extent of the damage is not yet known, as the quake struck as evening was falling, but coastal towns and cities near the epicenter like Muisne, Rosa Zarate, and Manta have been seriously affected, with buildings, bridges, and an airport control tower collapsing. Vice President Jorge Glass said at a press conference on Saturday at least 77 people had been killed, but called it a preliminary figure that could rise as daylight broke. He also declared a national emergency and said 10,000 soldiers and 3,500 police have been dispatched to the affected areas. In Korea, the foreign ministry said Sunday there had been no Korean casualties reported as of noon, and that it had sent a text message with a list of safety precautions to the 1,200 Koreans living in Ecuador. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has dispatched an emergency response team to southern Japan to help with the ongoing search and rescue effort after the area was struck by two deadly earthquakes over the weekend. The Foreign Ministry said Sunday the team will consist of 2 people from the Foreign Ministry and 2 locals from the area. They will be tasked with reporting on the damage to Korean residents in the affected areas. There are about 20,000 Koreans living on Kyushu Island, but there have been no Korean casualties reported so far. At least 41 people have been killed in the 2 earthquakes that struck Japan's Kumamoto prefecture last week, and nearly 80 people are believed to be trapped under the rubble. South Korean officials say a 5th nuclear test by North Korea may be imminent based on recent movements at its nuclear test site that seem to indicate the preparations are in the final stages. Our Kwon So-wha tells us more.
There is a strong chance that North Korea will conduct another nuclear test soon, just 3 months after its 4th test, despite the UN Security Council sanctions imposed on the North last month for that test. Government officials said Sunday that movements at North Korea's Punggye-ri nuclear test site indicate the regime is preparing for a 5th test. According to the officials, the activity involving vehicles, equipment, and humans has increased 2 to 3 times compared to last month at the test site in the northeastern part of the country. Pyongyang recently claimed it is ready to launch nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles. While that capability is still in question, South Korea is closely monitoring North Korea's movements. Some experts say a 5th nuclear test may be even more imminent now, as the regime's reputation has been dented by its failed launch of an intermediate-range ballistic missile on Friday, and the regime may be in a hurry to show off its missile and/or nuclear capabilities ahead of its ruling Workers' Party Congress in early May, the first one in 36 years. Others say, however, the chances of a nuclear test before the event are slim.
I doubt that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un would go as far as to conduct another nuclear test at this time. The consequences would be very strong, as international sanctions would be intensified and China would be considerably burdened.
Experts say that if the North were to launch another missile or conduct another nuclear test, the UN Security Council could be expected to immediately impose even stronger sanctions on the regime, as it indicated in its most recent condemnation of the North's latest missile test. Kwon So-wha, Arirang News.
A more forceful and balanced policy mix should be employed to achieve strong global growth. That's according to a communique by the International Monetary and Financial Committee after a meeting Saturday in Washington. The policymakers seem concerned that global expansion will slow after the IMF downgraded its global outlook again and warned that a prolonged period of slow growth would put the world economy at risk of stagnation. They add it is vital to use all policy tools to stimulate growth, enhance stability, and avert deflation. In response, finance ministers and central bankers pledged to support growth in order to overcome threats to the world economy, including the refugee crisis in Europe and a potential UK exit from the EU. The committee advises the Board of Governors of the 189-member nation International Monetary Fund. Korea's dependence on trade has dropped to an 8-year low attributed to the significant fall in exports last year. According to Korea's central bank on Sunday, the nation's trade dependence ratio plummeted by 10.5 percentage points last year from the previous year, the lowest since the year 2007. Due to the country's export-oriented economy, the dependence has at times even peaked to over 110%. Much of the decline is attributed to decreased demand from China, South Korea's biggest trading partner. In fact, separate data released Sunday shows outbound shipments plunged almost 16% in the first quarter of the year, a record 7-year low. That's why experts suggest a different strategy for Korea's trade market. It hasn't been long since spring arrived in Korea, but with daytime temperatures reaching over 20 degrees Celsius, summer items are already hitting the shelves. Oh Jung-hee keeps us up to date on which products to look out for.
It's just 2 weeks into April and watermelons are already on sale at a big supermarket chain in Korea. That's about 2 weeks earlier than in previous years. The chain E-Mart says that the warming weather is the main reason why they just had to put them on the shelves.
The weather is getting warmer and warmer. With summer on the way, we're offering the iconic summer fruit, watermelons, right now.
The customers seem satisfied as they can buy the sweet summer fruit for a price that's 20% lower than usual.
I've tasted the watermelons here and they're quite flavorful. They're pretty cheap too.
Other outlets are also getting a jump on their pre-summer sales events. Lotte Department Store launched its annual sundress sale on Wednesday. The retailer moved the event start date up by a month, again because of the warm weather. About 120 fashion brands will participate in the sales event that is to last until next weekend, and dresses will be sold at a maximum 70% discount. The rising mercury has also brought a surge in sales of summer products online. One online shopping mall saw sales of shaving creams and hair removal wax go up by 30% and 50%. There was also a noticeable increase in sales for beauty products and food items like weight loss drinks. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Korea's foreign exchange market may soon be open for an extra half an hour. Korea's Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho, who is in Washington for the G20 meeting of finance ministers and central bankers, told reporters that extending the hours will help revitalize and globalize the Korean stock market. The current hours would be extended from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on weekdays to 3:30. There are also ongoing efforts to extend the Korea Exchange's stock trading hours by the same amount to boost its volume. Yoo said foreign investors will suffer inconvenience in foreign currency exchanges unless FX market operations coincide with stock trading hours. The local stock market's current trading hours are at least 2 hours shorter than those in Singapore and Europe. The government will seek to implement the plan later this year. Pope Francis took 12 migrants back to the Vatican with him after visiting a migrant camp on the Greek island of Lesbos over the weekend. The Vatican said in a statement Saturday it would take responsibility for the 3 families from Syria. UN High Commissioner for Refugee Filippo Grandi praised the Pope's gesture, calling it a powerful demonstration of solidarity that will inspire world leaders to change their ways. Meanwhile, in an address on Saturday to migrants who have fled war and violence from their homes in the Middle East and North Africa, the Pope also offered a prayer for all the men, women, and children who have died after leaving their homelands in search of a better life. The pontiff spoke of empathy and mercy as he met with those who had gathered to greet him. Some broke down in tears, deeply moved by his presence. Strong winds that blew across South Korea last night left their mark in various corners of the nation. On the southern resort island of Jeju, more than 280 flights were grounded last night before things got back to normal this morning. In the southern port city of Busan, powerful winds accompanied by 77 millimeters of rain capsized a boat and swept it 700 meters off course. Makeshift covers at numerous construction sites in Ulsan were flung off, damaging parked vehicles. In the southwest, road signs, signboards, and poles were flung out of place in Jeonju, while airborne garbage cans spread trash all over. Out east in Goryeo, 10 greenhouses had their roofs ripped off, while in Pohang, golf practice facilities were torn apart. And in Incheon, west of Seoul, 13 boats were unable to cast off. The winds reached speeds of up to 20 meters per second in some places and are still blowing off the eastern coast. The strong wind advisories that were in place overnight have been lifted in most parts of the nation, but they are still in effect for the eastern coastal islands of Ulleungdo and Dokdo and the western islands of Guksan-do and Hongdo. On Monday, we may see some fine dust sweeping across the country, so you may want to carry a mask with you, and you also might want to pack an umbrella as there is rain in the forecast for many parts of the nation, including the capital. Seoul and Daejeon will start the day at 7 degrees Celsius, Daegu at 9. The mercury will then climb up to 17 in Seoul, Daejeon to 19, and Daegu to 21. And now let's check out the weather conditions in other parts of our world. That's all for now, but we do have more updates coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time, so do join us then. Thanks for watching.